How did you get into racing?
On them roads down home, you always had your 3-4 ways you could get to your house from town, and we used them all. And but I got caught though.
We knew that Moonshine had something to do with stock car racing in the early days. A lot of those guys honed their skills on the highway running from the ATU and called Revenue was back then. But 1932, they got after my daddy coming out of Martinsville, coming into North Carolina.
If you were in front of me, I was going to lay you a blister because I going to pass you.
So you didn't mind pushing people out of the way?
I didn't push. I didn't knock them. I drove around. No, I didn't mind driving around them at all.
Also, I run North Wilkesboro in the afternoon and then went to Shelby that night and won there also.
So the Shelby Fairgrounds Speedway, you ran over there.
Yeah.
My favorite race has to be Darlington, 1992, whenever me and Harry Gant raced for the last lap and won my first Busch race at Darlington.
Today on the Wise News Network, we are in Shelby, North Carolina at the Combs Family Museum for a huge event.
Absolutely. It looks like there's hundreds of people here today to celebrate all different forms of racing here at the Combs Family Museum.
Yes, there's many drivers here, some old drivers, some fairly new drivers, some early NASCAR drivers, and some recent drivers too.
Absolutely. It looks like folks are walking around, getting interviews, and getting the opportunity to really look at some of these amazing cars. I've seen cars that are up to decades years old.
Yes, there's some Moonshine stories, I believe, some Moonshine cars here, some of the original Moonshiner cars and race cars. And this whole area, Shelby, North Carolina, Cleveland County, we're at the southern of Appalachia, and NASCAR was basically started by Moonshiners.
I had not known that until today, actually, Rusty, if you believe that or not, but it's very impressive. Such a rich history here in the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains, and we can't wait for y'all to be able to watch this video and learn more.
We're going to get some interviews, talk to Phil. Phil is the owner of the museum. He's got a lot to say about the museum. It's a huge event, a big crowd, and beautiful weather.
Absolutely. We couldn't have been more lucky with the weather that we're having today.
So stay tuned. We're going to interview some people, show you a lot of cool cars from Shelby, North Carolina at the Combs Family Museum. Stay tuned. We're here with Phil Combs, and he is the creator of this event, and it's been a super event. Phil, tell us a little bit about the event.
Well, it's my 5th anniversary and reunion, and it's just a big get-together for a lot of different forms of racing. You know, I said this when I was doing my thing earlier today, that it's amazing that you can look in any direction, here, or behind you, and see superstars of either dirt track racing, NASCAR, drag racing, or asphalt racing, or whatever, you know. And when you get to the likes of 1960 champion Rex White here, who don't do hardly anything anymore on account of his health, to come. But it was so cool because Rex was here at my first one I did 5 years ago, and for him to get to come back, even though he's had all the health issues, that meant a lot. But then on top of the racers, I had visitors as far away as West Virginia that drove from West Virginia, Indiana, that drove from Indiana, and Las Vegas that flew just for this.
I mean, if you've not been here, you definitely need to set up an appointment with Phil to come see it. Do you want viewers to know the address and how they can get a hold of it?
Yeah, 833 Pleasant Drive, Shelby, North Carolina. The best way to get a hold of me is on Facebook. And if you just go on Phil Combs and send me a message, or you can go on Combs Family Museum, I'll keep up with that better than anything. And I always try to juggle my schedule for visitors, whether you can come in the afternoon or morning. But it's open by appointment only. You know, I told my brother when I built it, I said, I'm not going to have another full-time job. I retired from FedEx. I said, I don't need another full-time job.
We have Bill Blair here, and he's got Blair's Last Run Moonshine, and I understand you've got some moonshine stories.
I do, and I'll tell you how this Blair's Last Run come into being. Now, folks, this goes way back. We know that moonshine had something to do with stock car racing in the early days. A lot of those guys honed their skills on the highway running from the ATU and called revenuers back then. But in 1932, they got after my daddy coming out of Martinsville, coming into North Carolina. He had to cross the Dan River Bridge, and they blocked it off, and he spun around in the road, and they started shooting at him, and chased him back into Martinsville, blocked the square off up there where he couldn't get out of town. It was just one road in, one way out back, and then at Highway 58. So they stopped him. It started snowing. They grabbed him, threw him on the ground, and put his hands behind him and cuffed him and drug him up the steps, threw him in the clink. Well, he didn't have no bail money. He spent all his money on 125 gallons of liquor. So he called his daddy, the magistrate did, and he got a hold of Bill's daddy, Mr. John Blair. Now, John Blair started 2 churches there in High Point, North Carolina. He started the Elks Club. He was in the land business and had a big dairy farm, well-to-do guy. He had no idea what young Bill was doing. So this magistrate said, "Sir," said, "have you got a son named William Ivy Blair?" And he said, "Yes, sir. What is the problem?" The magistrate said, "Well, sir, we just caught him up here in Martinsville with 125 gallons of non-tax-paid liquor." So Mr. Blair thought a minute. He said, "Well, let me tell you what you do. Being you caught him, you keep him, slam the phone down, you know." So the next day, it was before Christmas, his mother sent the oldest son, Garland, up to get him, and it cost $5 to get him out of jail. That's what the bond was then. And they was going to try him in the Western District Court of Virginia. So that's going to take place in Danville in March. So he went up to Danville, expected to go away to Chillicothe, Ohio, to a federal pen, and spend a year and a day in a clink. But unbeknown to Bill, my father, his daddy, Mr. John Blair, had made some contact with somebody up there and had it word that he's just going to be fined and put on probation. So they charged him $100 and put him on probation. And he told the judge, said, "Judge, you can bet your ass one thing. I ain't going to make no more run. This is my last run." But anyway, yes, we got Blair's Last Run Moonshine today.
So NASCAR and moonshine kind of go hand in hand.
Well, we wonder what would have happened had there not been no moonshine and bootleggers. You had 4 tracks in my area built by the liquor money. You had Tri-City Speedway, that was my daddy's track. You had Martinsville, that was Claire Earl's track, and Sam Rice out of liquor money. Wilkesboro was the Combs family, and Staley family, that was liquor. And the New Charlotte Speedway, built in 1948, was also liquor money, 2 bootleggers. And they got caught putting a slammer, and the landowner became instantly a promoter.
So there's been quite a few racetracks built off moonshine.
They were. Stop and think about it. In that period of time, they're the ones that had the money. Now, they helped a lot of people back in those days. They made big contributions to churches and started different organizations to help people. And, it's just a way of life back then.
Now, tell me about your line of moonshine.
Well, this is made by Southern Distillery over in Statesville, North Carolina, and it's a Legend series. And it's one of the best on the market, if not the best. I'm going to claim it's the best, but others would differ because of theirs. But it's mainly from corn, sweet corn, but it's very, very smooth, and it's good liquor, good liquor.
So there you have it, guys. Corn liquor, moonshine, the backbone of NASCAR in the early days.
It did help, and even today, we know we're out doing this, and keeping early racing alive. People like Rex we just talked about. There's so much involvement of people that need the recognition and never get no recognition. You go to Mount Airy, North Carolina, Moonshine Racers Reunion. There's a wall of fame up there that puts these people on it to recognize them, honor them. They're never going to be recognized by NASCAR probably, but there's a lot of people that made big contributions to early stock car racing, and we want to honor them by putting them on a wall of fame up there and give them some publicity they so much deserve.
We're with Dink Widenhouse, a famous driver Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I can't tell you much about the famous part. I'm just dang quiet now. And I started racing a long time ago. My brother was building a racetrack, and he was afraid he didn't have enough race cars, so he had me to go out behind his garage and get a car. He said, make a race car out of that. I said, I'm afraid I ain't gonna have enough race cars. And it was a 37 Ford straight back. And that's the first race car I had. When I could win, I planned on winning. I was gonna, if you were in front of me, I was gonna lay your a blister because I gonna pass you.
So you didn't mind pushing people out of the way?
I didn't push. I didn't knock. I drove around them. No, I didn't mind driving around them at all. That was my favorite hobby.
I see some trophies behind you here. One's a 1957 championship, I believe.
And this trophy right here, I got in Asheville. Same day I got it, I outrun Buddy Schumann. First time I'd ever outrun him. and Buddy Schumann come by after the race and told my brother, I wasn't on the scene, but he told my brother, he said, well, a little SOB can outrun me now, but he's still gonna have to come to my place and get parts. Buddy Schumann had a garage that he sold race car parts out of. And this is on Sunday. And on Monday, as soon as I got out of school, first place I wound up was where you think? Over at his place getting my parts. Schumann and me were friends, good friends.
I'm sure you've met a lot of friends over the years in racing.
I had a lot of race car driver friends. Because I didn't rough them. I didn't just necessarily run over them. I would pass them, but I wouldn't run over them.
Did you ever have any wrecks that you remember?
The only racetrack I ever been carried away from was Darlington Speedway. And they carried me to town overnight, but I had a cut under my chin, but I wasn't hurt.
Well, tell us about these pictures and racing over at Concord. And I understand that you couldn't race NASCAR till you were 21, and you were not quite 21.
That's right, I sure wasn't. In that picture right there, I wasn't 21. And that's a NASCAR man there. And I was out at the NASCAR track, but they wouldn't let me run to start with. And I think that the NASCAR man presenting me because the race is over and I had won it. And Johnny Bruner, the NASCAR man, he was a little bit cheap. He wasn't my friend, and he wouldn't present me with the winner's trophy. But that boy did. Joe Epton, he was my friend.
So you won the race and was not even 21. How old were you?
I was still in high school.
Yeah. So you won the race, was it 21, but did they give you the money? They award you the trophy and all?
My daddy, he didn't come to the racing on Sunday, but on Monday, he threatened to put him in court for not paying me. And that's when that man paid me.
Well, I understand that they were not going to let you race until the fans kind of pitched a fit, and then you wound up racing.
Yeah, they didn't run 2 heat races, but they're going to run 3 races that day. And when it come time to run a 3rd race, the fans wouldn't get quiet. And so NASCAR had to let me on the racetrack. But he told me I had to run in the rear too. And I did. I started the rear of that race.
But you wound up winning the race.
Yeah, I wound up winning it, passing every one of them. But I wasn't no slouch racing, that's for sure. But I didn't run over people.
We're here with Robert Presley. And tell us a little bit about your racing career, Robert.
Well, they ain't much to talk about. Done a little bit of late model racing around Harris Speedway here with my dad. Then I went on and raced Hickory, Asheville, and around the Southeast. Got the opportunity to run Busch Grand National and, able to win 10 or 11 races. Went on and run some truck races and won a couple. And then got to take over the Harry Gant deal. I guess that's one of the biggest things we got to do there. And Harry retired, and I was named the replacement for a couple years. So enjoyed that. But this NASCAR family is really a tight-knit family, and it's nice to Phil comes to do something like this and us all get together because this generation's about gone.
Yeah, we've talked to a lot of the older drivers, and we've asked them the same things. Is there any race that really sticks out in your mind that may be one of your favorites?
Well, my favorite race has to be Darlington, 1992, whenever me and Harry Gant raced for the last lap and won my first Busch race at Darlington. And the beat Harry at Darlington was probably the highlight of my career of all the races that I won, is knowing of watching old films and everything of how you go in turn 3 and don't let them do the little crossover on you. And I done it, and I ain't saying I outsmarted Harry. I don't think Harry thought that I knew what was going to happen and beat him back to the line, and I think that launched my career right there.
Do you watch today's NASCAR racing on TV, or are you still involved?
No, my son, he's the spotter for Joey Logano, and been with him about 4 years now, and I'll watch it, but I'm not, it ain't that I don't enjoy the racing, I just don't enjoy the stage racing, the championship point, which everything's going to change. Everything changed over the years from when Cale Yarborough, the Allison Petty, Pearson race, to when I was racing, and now it's another. Everything's going to change along the way. But I appreciate everything NASCAR has done over the years. I love it, but just sitting and watching it, it's hard for me to do.
You'd probably rather be out there on the track.
I tell you what, I wish we could just roll back 25 years. I'd love to be back out there.
Well, maybe there'll be a vintage race. You guess that could be in the making one day?
It could be, but I tell you what, if they don't hurry up, we're getting too old to do it.
This area was basically started NASCAR with Moonshine and the old cars and that sort of thing.
Well, if we've got any of the county people listening here, I was a county commissioner in Buncombe County. So what they need to do is somehow get some grant money and help Combs here build a big museum here, because this is amazing. People want to see what it is, and if they'll look around at the crowd of people here, this could be a good tourism development deal for the county right here to really help Combs out on.
Yeah, basically the foothills of the Appalachia was where it all started.
That's it. It all started out trying to outrun the law with them cars, and then they decided to race it.
Well, now they've made it kind of like a ball sport, and there's so much money involved, so much TV money, that they have to try to do different things just to get eyeballs on the TV sets, basically.
Right. And the thing is, let's get some eyeballs on all this memorabilia he's got.
Now, Robert Presley was pushing for a larger building from the county. Did you know he was politicking for you?
Well, Robert and I have been friends since we was this high. We're almost the same age, and his dad raced at Asheville and Hickory when my dad was the chief steward, and so we've been friends nearly all of our life. And Robert, being a county commissioner and all, has got a lot of political pull, so it would be nice, I've had some people tell me that I have more traffic here than some other museums that have 10 times the backing, if you know what I'm saying. So I think that would be a great thing, if you all know the truth.
Now, if somebody wants to donate to the Combs Family Museum, how can they do that?
Well, that's a good question. I've got a donation jar here today. The guy, that wasn't my idea, it was their idea. And and just whatever way they choose to, cash donation or whatever. But like I say, I'm not in it for the money. If I was, I'd be in something else. Me and you know both. You don't make any money racing. You don't make any money in a museum. It's a expense to keep the thing open, but it's what do they call it, labor of love?
Yeah, just talking to the drivers, seeing the cars and just seeing the other drivers, it brings back so many memories of when they raced. And there's a smell to the dirt, there's a smell to the racing alcohol and the rubber. And the drivers just tell me just being in an event like this brings back those memories.
Oh, you've raced as long as I have, Rusty. I mean, there's nothing like it. I mean, I've never been on drugs, nothing like that, to sense any kind of a high. But to me, it's kind of like the preacher was talking about today. I don't know if he was here for the service, but he was talking about when they say, gentlemen, start your engines. And you raced at Daytona, and I have too. And when you crank that car up, man, that adrenaline going through you, it hadn't got to be Daytona. It can be any racetrack. That's just, I mean, there's nothing like it. And if you ever do it, you'll understand.
Yeah, it's the most exhilarating thing you'll ever do, especially like Daytona. You're holding it to the floor, and you got multi-story bank coming, and you're just to hold it to the floor, and it sticks. And it's a lot of fun, fun. And just short track racing is so much fun too.
It is. It's amazing. But I'm going to tell you what my favorite part of it all is. The friends I made. I mean, this guy right here in the red shirt, that's Bob Ferguson. I've been to his house up in Indiana. He drove all the way here from Leesburg, Indiana, and brought me that Dale Earnhardt thing standing up against the door at the museum on the garage. I mean, I can look in every direction, like I say, and I met this guy. Come here. This guy right here, the first race. Come here. The first race that I ever raced in NASCAR, he raced in the same race. And that was in 1977, and we're still friends this day.
And what's his name?
Mike Chickalo. But we went to Charlotte, Texas World Speedway, and Riverside, and Jabe towed with a half-ton Chevy Ford pickup truck with a sleeper on the back of it. I wasn't with them. I was with Roger Hamby and Bobby Wowak. And then when we went up to Las Vegas, we stayed in a room with about 15 guys, circus.
But seriously, it's amazing the friendships like this guy right here that I made through the years, that go-kart racers, dirt track racers, and all, that I'm still talking to. I talk to him every week on the telephone. It's just amazing.
I talked to Will Cronkite over there. I ain't talked to Will in ages. I remember he's like one of NASCAR's first engineers. There's a real story right there. Him and Cliff Champion. But Will used to have set-up plates and strings back in the 70s before engineering happened,
Today I'm here with Scott, Dane, and Brian, and they're going to tell us a little bit about their exhibit here at the Combs Family Museum in the Racers Reunion. How are y'all folks doing today?
Oh, we're doing terrific. Thank you.
Absolutely. And can you tell me a little bit about what is the story behind this car, and have y'all been having a good day here at the reunion?
Oh, this has just been a wonderful event. This car was driven by Buck Baker. My grandfather, Ike Kaiser, was the mechanic on the car, along with Roby Combs. Phil's dad was partner on the car, and their dad was
Okay, cool. And how long was this car in commission? How long was this car racing?
They bought the car in 1950 from Buddy Schumann, and they drove it from 1950 to 1955, and while Buck Baker was driving Grand National full time.
Okay, can you tell me any stories that this car might have, that the team might have had while working on it?
Well, I mean, one claim to fame, this car has won 27 consecutive races in a row, which makes it one of the most successful race cars in NASCAR modified history.
Wow, that's very impressive. What is your favorite racing memory from working this car? One of those 27 consecutive wins.
I mean, more than anything else, I mean, building this car has just brought everybody together. It's been a whole lot of effort. a lot of money, you know, but more than anything else, I mean, we just pretty much discovered we have a family we didn't know we have.
Do you have anything you want to add about the history of the car, about the event itself?
Well, I mean, just a terrific event to be at, and you know, we're just happy to be a part of it. And a number of events coming up. We'll be in Daytona in Florida. We were just in. One thing that was really cool is that we were just in Darlington for NASCAR's 75th anniversary. We were chosen one of 20 cars to be there to represent NASCAR's 75th anniversary. So that was a really big deal for us.
That is very exciting. And you said that they can find y'all when you go to Daytona?
Well, we have the Daytona Beach Road Course parade coming up in February, and we have the big honor. George Levy, the president of the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America, will be driving it on the beach in February.
And do y'all have anything you want to add maybe about what your daddy did with the car?
Well, it was before our time, of course, but we're just proud to be a part of it. You know, it's an awesome thing when you can keep your father's memory alive, you know, through something that he loved to do and something that we love to do. So it's just been a blessing to us just to be a part of it.
I'm sure that connection is just, you really feel connected to him through the work that you're doing.
We definitely do. And Scott and his brother own the car, and just to be a part of it is something special. But then they asked us to build the engine for the car. So, you know, just following in my dad's footsteps, you know, helping his legacy carry on. It's been a lot of fun. And events like these, getting to see your childhood racing heroes and, you know, get to talk to them and share memories with them that you have, what, you know, as a child growing up. And like Scott was saying, you know, our families were connected 50 plus years ago through his grandfather and my dad. And for us to come together and, I mean, it's just like giving us an additional family, you know? And so it's been a lot of fun.
I'm so glad that y'all have been able to make that connection. And you mentioned your favorite racing heroes. Is there anyone in particular that you were the most excited to see today at today's event?
There's two here, Chuck Piazza and Freddie Smith. My greatest, I spent 3 years in NASCAR, and to this day, my all-time favorite race happened at Metrolina Speedway back in the early 70s. Chuck Piazza in a maroon-colored number 74 Camaro, Freddie Smith in a Camaro painted about like the one over there. They ran a 30-lap main, and the race, I don't even remember who won the race, but for 30 laps, they swapped the lead. They would go one corner, Chuck would lead, the next corner, Freddie would lead, and they went the whole 30 laps and never touched. They would go in the corner sideways together, just inches apart. They would sling both cars in at the same time. It was like a synchronized ballet. And to this day, and I was just a little boy, but to this day, that was my favorite race of all time.
We're here with Rex White, which is a historical NASCAR driver. Rex, give us a little bit of history of yourself.
Well, I've won 5 races in a week, and in 5 days, and that was a sportsman. That wasn't cup, but. I had a great career in racing.
So you raced 5 nights in 5 days. So y'all raced about. What all racetracks did you go to then?
Went to Columbia on Thursday night and Friday night at Asheville. Saturday night at I forgot.
Got Asheville, Columbia, Charlotte. Metrolina?
No, I never raced in Carolina, but I did win 5 races in a week, and that was quite a feat.
Well, how much did you win?
Well, I won somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 a night a race to win the feature.
That was pretty good money back then.
Yeah, and also I run North Wilkesboro in the afternoon, and then went to Shelby that night and won there also.
So the Shelby Fairgrounds Speedway, you ran over there.
Yeah, that was dirt and pretty bad surface.
About what year range did you race in Shelby?
The late 70s.
Is there a race that really stands out above all the others?
Actually, there is. I won a race on a road course in Montgomery, New York, and they never run but one, and I won it, and that was quite a feat. It had 5 turns, and 3 lefts and 4 rights, or vice versa. But I won a road course.
Do you watch racing today?
A lot of it. A lot of it.
What do you think about the sport today compared to years ago?
Well, I don't like the sport as much as I did when I raced, but it's changed so much. And I don't like some of the changes, the way they qualify and everything. I don't like change.
A lot more money involved now than when you raced.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I went through the short money a lot.
What else would you like to say to our viewers when it comes to racing? Well, how did it affect your life?
Well, I spend a lot of time watching on television and enjoy it. And always tell them my views of things.
Yeah. Now, when you retired from racing, what did you do?
I got in the trucking business.
Was it a company like Carolina Freight, or was it a trucking company?
No, I started out with Yellow Freight, and they changed the name, went to Freight Corps and all, and that's at least say the least to them.
Do you mind me asking how old you are?
No, I'm 92.
92 years old, Rex White, still enjoying racing. And one last statement to your fans. What would you like to say?
Proud of all of them.
We're here with the legendary Harry Gant, or the Skull Bandit, and we could talk for hours, but Harry, what have you been up to?
Well, I've gotten a cattle business when I got racing, and stayed in that for about 30 years, and then now I'm just doing a lot of yard mowing and working on tractor, working on cars, and I stay busy, but I try to have Saturday off.
Well, how did you get into racing?
On them roads down home, you always had your 3-4 ways you could get to your house from town, and we used them all. And but I got caught though. I was dating my wife then, Peggy. I was dating her, and Truman had chased me a long way. But he didn't know what happened to me, and I was in a barn. And so anyway, he come down there and got me and took me up to the jailhouse, and I had to get somebody to sign my bond, and they let me go, and I lost my license for I believe it was 30 days, and which was good back then. But I'll tell you a little story went with it. And I was doing autograph sessions after I quit racing a good while. And the first race at Miami, Florida, was the Cup race. And this woman comes to me, and elder, she said, I need you to say something on the phone. My husband is in pretty bad shape in the hospital. So I said, okay. I talked to him. He said, you know me? I said, yeah. He told me his name. He said, you know when I was chasing you? I said, yeah. He said, well, I'll tell you one thing. That wasn't the only time I was chasing you. He said, I think you owe me a favor from something to making you a better driver.
So running from the law kind of, that's where you got some of your experience that went on to the track.
Yeah, I wanted to race, but I had a family start and everything, and I was building houses and I had chicken houses, and I just didn't have any time. And so finally I decided I was going to do it back, and me and my brother, I worked with my dad building houses. Then he got a heart attack. Then I started building when I built my house in '65, and then he couldn't work much, and so I started working with him and my brother. But my brother he got service. He didn't have any kids. He got married, but he drafted into 2 years, and I kept building houses and racing together. Then he come back out in '67, I think '68, and so we just started building more houses and bigger houses, and so I was running further away, bigger races on short tracks. I run Daytona and Charlotte and all them too, but I was really kind of undecided about this part of my life, the racing. And so we had several houses to build the rest of that year. 2-story, had to start building bigger houses. So anyway, my brother, he sort of said, there's not a lot of money. We contracted. We'd contract a year. Well, the stuff went up, there wasn't a lot of profit in houses there. We had some land there in Hickory, and we had lots and all that, sewer and everything. And so I built a couple houses over there when I raced. It was really good to go over on Monday and dig a footing out by yourself. You're so mad.
You're mad about the previous race, you take it out on the footer.
Yeah, it was good. And I built a couple, then a guy, he come by, and he wanted to buy the rest of lots over there. So we sold them out to it, and then we're sitting there going to go to Daytona. Had the Firebird loaded up, modified car was built. It's going to be the first race at Daytona. And then we took a sportsman car to Daytona in 1977. And my brother was talking, it was snowing. We had both cars loaded up. And so we thought about different avenues. And he said, I should race all the time instead of working and doing both, And I said, I'll tell you, I'm going to go to Daytona. And you keep everything going here. And I'm going to go down there and I'm going to race. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, if I'm going to race or build houses. And he said, okay. So we go to Daytona, and I won the race. Lapped the whole field, Firebird.
So the first race at Daytona, you won.
Yeah. We won it. And that thing flew. We lapped the field. That's hard at Daytona. And the front tires were both shredded. And I couldn't hardly make them last laps.
Perfectly legal, I guess.
Oh, yeah, because if it wasn't for stricter plates, I'd probably run 300 miles an hour. This was a real engine I had. And so anyway, finished second in the sportsman race. Jackie, I was leading the race, and he couldn't get by. I know I just eased up, and he'd come out. Well, then caution come out on white going for the checkered flag down the back stretch. I'm waving like this here, I see this car sitting up there between 3 and 4, oil everywhere. And I'm waving like this, and he passed me. And then we got there. You raced back to the flag, dude, And I was just going to be white and yellow. But it wasn't that way. The yellow light was flashing back there. And he come flying under me, and we kind of touched a little bit. And I turned sideways in that oil, and I was at that car. And about that time, boom, Dave Marcus hit that car. He's going to pass us both. Oh, we slid sideways and went down on the apron. Well, Jack, he takes off in second gear, and I take off in third. And I got back about a foot ahead behind him. He beat me by about a foot, half a fender. And he won the race, and I finished second. So I go back home there, and I told brother, I said, well, that's the most money I ever had in my life.
When you win your first race, that's probably a good sign to keep doing it.
Yeah, somebody saying I ought to do it, I reckon, so that's what I done. So I just immediately, a coal miner was the first car. We raced against him all the time. He owned Butch Lindley's cars. And so he built a Winston Cup car, and we went to Daytona. We raced about 6 races, and we was probably going to win Charlotte, and that's about the first time I'd run a car at Charlotte. Well, not a update car. I drove Junior Dunleavy's first Winston Cup car I ever drove at Charlotte, 73. But we was running in the race down there, and Bobby Allison and Darrell was battling each other. Well, I could catch them easy, but I'd make a pit stop. They'd be way ahead, and I'd come back up. There'd be a motion. So we getting. I'm thinking. They get side by side going in the turn. And I'm not real sure this thing will stick, not lifting to get by. I go to the outside. Well, that's why I can move. Darrell goes up and Bobby comes up trying to block him, So I figured 10 to go. I'm going either inside or outside. I'm going to win the race. It blowed up going down the back stretch. I just pulled right up against Bobby, and it blowed up. Junior built the engine, and I went over there Monday morning. The timing chain broke, and it just blowed the bottom of the engine out. But we'd run pretty good a couple times to be a new team, but then I had a chance to do with Jack Beebe, Connecticut. I really didn't know him, and he didn't run Winston Cup, so the number wasn't familiar. Nobody was, but I thought that's a pretty good deal. They're going to run all the races, so that's what I've done till the Skoll deal come through. And I run just a few races in 64, run the whole series. And buddies I went to school with, they were a little older than me, and we won the championship, and they promoted you up to the late model sportsman, which is like the Busch series now. And so we won that, and so we just, and Ned, I won a bunch of stuff that one year, and Ned Jarrett, 67, Ned Jarrett come paved the track in 67, and he said, I won more trophies that year for rookie driver, and I'm armed full. He said, come here, you want to drive a car at Charlotte Motor Speedway? And I said, I don't know, I got to see my schedule. Nashville was the last race, and I didn't ever want to miss it. Marty Robbins 500. And so he said, I'll get you a ride. And John Levy's Torino, number 90. He said, go down Wednesday and practice. Okay. So I went over there, and Junie, I knowed him. He come over there. He said, go out there. He got that Virginia accent, and he's chewing this here cigar. Go out there, warm it up, give me one hot lap, and get a plug check, switch it. Okay. So I'm used to seeing 8,000 RPM was a normal. We run 882, and that's for the 420 big block motor, So I go out there, I'm just letting it purr around there, run around 7,500, and they didn't ever say, we didn't have no radios, and they'd have to tell me when to run the hot lap.
So you didn't have a spotter or anything. You're out there on your own, basically.
Yeah, but it was almost wide open. It didn't do nothing. That's all I called in. And this guy, he came over from winter, and he said, Junie's upset. And you don't see Junie get upset, And I said, why? And he said to give him one hot lap, shake it down. And you went out and you run every lap almost wide open. I said, well, I thought it was going to turn 8,000, but they don't turn but 7,200 on them big blocks. And here comes Junie over there chewing that. He took a crook cigar and broke it in half and chewed it. And he stuck his head in the window and he punched that tack. Well, all right. You shake it down, you shake it down.
So you saw what it was made out of.
Yeah, I thought I wasn't going to get to drive the car then the way that crew guy was telling me. But we run the whole race. Junie used tires, but we finished the top 10, I think. It's 500 miles. I know one thing. I blistered my hands that day, and I never did wear gloves. You couldn't do nothing with gloves on. You can't farm, you can't carpenter, nothing you can do with gloves. And I always held the steering wheel with my fingers, because you could do that there faster than you could do this, put these three in, kept it about like a 2 and 9 over here. It's like that there. I see a lot of people drive different ways and got all these gloves. I couldn't even do nothing.
But you like to feel the steering wheel, feel the car.
And your hands didn't get tired.
What year did the Skoll deal come about?
They talked to me in 80, at the end of 80. And then they hired me in 81, April of 81. And they give me it was a 3-year contract. And then about starting into the second year, they wanted to make a new contract. So they made Hal Needham added 2 years to what we had to go, which was about 4 years, So,
now, you dominated in the 80s in the Skoll Bandit. Now, how many races did you win straight?
well, that was 91. We won, four in a row. And but we got wrecked in both of them, and 2 of them, and still won. In fact, it run better after it got wrecked at Martinsville. And I think it tore up like that. I think a lot of cold air kept the brakes and all, it run better. I didn't have to even run hard, the last half of the race. Just drive down there and let off and turn it. It had a half round to play on the steering wheel, and you just go right there and do that, and you go back like that. And it'd do it every time, just like you had a chain hooked to it.
Is there a race that really stands out in your mind, your favorite race?
It is. It's to fool you when I say this here, Bo, but they're running Darlington in Ed Whitaker's Bush car on Saturday. And we always had good luck at Darlington. And so I'm leading the race out here, and we get down to about 10 laps to go. And I go in the third turn, the old third turn. You whistle in there and let up, but you got to get back in and keep it cocked with your throttle. It turns it. So this throttle stuck to the floor. And so I throw my hand up there real fast, and I switched it off. Morgan Shepherd was running second. Then I turned it back on to get out of the way, and he passed me going down the straightaway. Well, I switched it back on and went down into turn 1, the old turn 1 down there. And it's a pretty sharp turn. And I'm going to go in the pits and get the throttle unhooked. And so I couldn't turn in. I was going too fast. So Morgan hit all the way down to the end of the straightaway, so I just flipped it back on. And I was going to take my hand, but the G-force, my hand, I told it that toggle switch, but I can't just keep holding it. I got to use that for gas. So I take these 3 fingers here and hooked onto the box that holds the switches, and I could switch it off and on.
So you're driving the car with the on-off switch.
Yeah, basically. And I come by and caught Morgan and passed him about 10 laps to go, and I won the race. Everybody think that was hard to do, really hard when you got all that G-force pulling you and your hand wanting to come over here and moving the steering wheel at the most hardest part of the racetrack, because you'd go right in the wall if you didn't have it cocked, and you had to cock it with that switch.
That's amazing. You're having to kill the car because the throttle was wide open. That was some maneuvering.
The floor. Yeah. And I come in the pits. We won the race. I had to switch it, and I finally switched off and told me they're going to push me. I can't. Switch is still on. And so I got out, and there's a bolt piece of metal. See what we've done. We found out a lot over the years about heat. And much as I built houses and all, I never had any attention to plywood, just plywood. And a guy came to me one day. I burnt my shoes just about off on the heels, and he said, "What'd you have?" I had this asbestos sheet and a piece of aluminum. He said, "The best thing in the world to keep heat out? Wood, plywood." He said you can burn a hole. You'll never burn it, though it's going to blaze all around. But you keep your hand on it. And so I go back home and I tell Ed Whitaker, cut all these measurements, floor, over the transmission, down over
So
here.
you use your carpentry skills in the bottom of the race car.
Yeah, and then I put that old insulation they give us. It ain't just get your foot hung up in it. And I went and took it, put it down. Then I put the plywood down. Then I put aluminum on top of it. Then I drilled a hole. That's the hole the boat hit, caught the throttle. And I was just pushing it down there. And then wood went under the seat too. Well, and then we took another guy told me, I didn't know this, but headliners in cars are fireproof. You know, they burn problem, but they are fireproof. And it's thin. And so had them do the whole dash. Winston Cup car too. Just cut out for the gauges, do the dash, because I didn't ever wear gloves. And it blistered the back of my hands. And I couldn't figure, where's that heat coming from? And it blistered my face. The A post that goes down is kind of holler, and you always put a piece of aluminum and drill holes in it. And that's where it's coming out of them holes. It opening goes all the way to the motor. So,
wow, that's before Hans devices and before all the aerodynamics and pulling air into the car and everything. So it got hot in there.
That one time I was 175, and that was back at the back, back where the back glass was at. Up here in front, it was. You could take a drink of water, blow it out on it. It's just it was burnt.
Now, who was your biggest rivals?
Butch Lindley. He always had a good car, and he's a real smart driver. And we raced each other, and I guess it was I can't think of 89, 89, somewhere along there. And he won the championship. I was running second. My car got stolen in Nashville, and we'd qualified from the pole, and everything.
Your car got stolen?
Yeah, and they found it in Atmore, Alabama, just the truck, and everything was gone, the trailer, and I never did find it. But and that year, I won 35 races, and Butch won 35. And he won the championship because Nashville was his last race. And you ain't gonna believe this. He said, I got two cars here, and I want you to drive my car. I don't want to win the championship, and you're not out there. No, I don't want to. I'm sick. I just got there, been all night going out of Alabama and getting that truck and motor blowed up in it. Poured it full of STP. Should have went home, but I went on to Nashville from Atmore, Alabama. And man, I had a headache. It's been a lot of call and all that. Okay, I'll drive it. Qualify. No, that's starting to rear qualify. Okay. I go out there and I'm burning that thing to the floor at the back stretch on the second lap. And throttle hung wide up and it went straight into the wall. And then I'm knocked out. And I'm wanting to go home and I'm at the hospital knocked out. It killed that car. We got back home, boy, I was about ready to quit then, everything. I'll tell you. But anyway, Butch called me again. They're going to run one more race, Kingsport, Tennessee. He wants me to come up there. He's going to have both cars there. And he said, he won 35 races, and I won 35 races. He said, I want to have the most races in 1 year. Okay, I'll come up there. So he had his second car there. The coal miner owned both them cars. And so Firestone guy was there. He traveled with us a lot. So we raced out there. I'm running second, 300 lap race. I'm running second. I come on the radio and I said, do I need to pass Butch? And they said that the Firestone guy asked the coal miner, he had a headset. He said, what'd he say? He said, you want him to pass Butch? He got that, put his mic up there and he said, if you don't pass him, and that's his car. You'll never drive a car from me again. So I passed him. That gave me one up on 36 races. But me and him together won, 70-some races there. And Goodyear didn't like that at all. And they offered us everything, but not what Firestone. We tested in the wintertime, tested at Florida, Savannah, Georgia, anywhere it's warm. And then you test for 4 or 5 days, about 20 some sets of tires. What the hard part is, you get through about 10 of them, then you go motel and you come back next morning, you get all ready to roll again, and you go out there and you burn up a good lap, a couple, maybe do it on 2 sets and come in. How did set 2 feel to set 10 yesterday?
Wow, so you had to remember all that and test.
I know about where, I know which one was best.
Were you a very good driver? Now, during your school days, you raced against Earnhardt Jr., Earnhardt and Waltrip and Wallace and all those boys. And that was basically the heyday of NASCAR, you know, when you guys were just coming up from grassroots.
I think I was in one race with the 24 car. I can't think his name.
Gordon,
yeah. Jeff Gordon. That's the only time they run me in the wall. I was on the outside past him, and he run me in the wall. I said, he can't drive a lick. Then he up winning championships like crazy, you know. Yeah, he come in. That's the only time at Dover. That's the only time that I raced with him.
Now, when did you finally retire from NASCAR?
I retired at the end of '94 season, but we'd led the race down there in Atlanta, and I was driving for BB then. No, but I won the race, late model sportsman race, and that was in November, last part of November, and I'm going to be in January 10th. I'm going to be 55 years old, and so I won the race. That's on Speedway. A lot of people win them and they're older than that, but not on Atlanta Speedway, you know.
I know when you walked away from racing, basically, or just retired, do you keep up with it? Do you watch it in today's racing?
I watch it today. I didn't watch it then. I worked. See, the contracts they give me on mostly Friday, Saturday, and Sundays with Skoll and Manheim. The Manheim would be through the week. Most went to conventions. Really good people, both of them. That Manheim would rent a lot of footage in coliseums, big coliseums, and they had their display a car up there and everything. And then I might go there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then usually Saturday you'd stay there till dinner time. But you go to New Orleans, went to Hawaii. Went to Chicago, every big town. That's where I went. And Skoll is basically racetracks.
So when you hung it up, you basically went back to farming and building houses, and you were in a steakhouse at one time, I think, up at Statesville, weren't you?
That was good. I liked that. I was involved back with Richard Howard, used to be the Charlotte Motor Speedway president.
Well, the steakhouse is in Taylorsville, wasn't it? Yeah.
But they had franchise for Western Steers, and he wanted me to come in on that deal, and I did. It was good, real good. And then I thought they had to change the name. You can only put one so close to 20 miles apart. That's about what it was, up to Lenore to Taylorsville. But there's one area I built it. My dad, I worked for Dad then. Built a big old cafe brick, double brick walls, full basement and all. And it come up for sale. And I just signed on with Skoll. And so they called me up and said, you got a building, you got a place that you could put a building up down there. We call it Western, change the name a little bit. So they own both franchises. And I said, yeah, there's one here. They said it's self-supported roof. I said, yeah. Can we tear it out? And I said, yeah, just fix it like you want it. So they come down there, and he said, just make it yours, and you just keep it, and we'll just do the deal with they furnish all the tables, all that stuff. So that's what I've done there for about 21 years. But all I've done there, really, I kept adding on. Wrong thing to do. You add on, and you fill it up, then you add on again, you fill it up, then you got to buy 3 sets of air conditioners. And
restaurant business is tough.
Yeah. And,
harder than racing.
Well, to me, it wasn't, because we eat free all the time.
Well, Harry, you got a bunch of people, I think, wanting to talk with you, and the Skull Bandit. Everybody knows the Skull Bandit, and we appreciate you coming and speaking with us today. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I'd say Phil Combs here, his mother. I signed my first driver race car license. I was 22 years old, and she signed me in out there, but I didn't get to run in the race because I had a flathead before. It was going to be my first ever on that racetrack, on any racetrack, and it got hot and it cracked the head, and I decided I was too busy working. I just wait till next year.
My brother asked me last year, he said, what do you think you can do to make this thing bigger or better? And I said, well, just got to dream up something. So I think this year I'll hopefully accomplish it, and next year I'll see what else I can dream up. But
So tomorrow morning, you're going to be planning for next year's.
Probably, yeah.
And get some sleep.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely need some. I'll burn the candle on both ends for about a month, actually.
It's a great event. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people here, tons of cars, and just so much rich history. So viewers, you're in for a treat as you watch our segments on this. Phil's put a lot of work into it, and we congratulate you, Phil.